Ever since James Gunn was appointed the head of DC Films and announced he was rebooting the DC universe with a new Superman and everything, there has been some degree of speculation of how extensive the reboot would be. Both Affleck and Cavill are gone, which suggested a hard reboot right there, but then he confirmed Blue Beetle was the first character in his rebooted universe, though not the first movie, which only served to add confusion. Like, does that mean Xolo will return, but not his family? Will he be playing a different Blue Beetle with a different origin story? If not, then how is this not just another soft reboot, like DC on film already did under Walter Hamada? So why get rid of Cavill and other fan favorites in the first place? And then there is the matter of Peacemaker and James Gunn's earlier The Suicide Squad. Will those be rebooted away alongside Cavill and Affleck? Many felt that in the name of both fairness and clarity they should be, while others maintained that no, Gunn would probably keep those, and it turns out we just might have been right. Recently, James Gunn has again taken to social media and released some more statements, and while they add more confusion, they also add some level of clarity. And it would appear that James Gunn's rebooted DC universe may actually end up becoming the Peacemaker cinematic universe. In this editorial, I will begin with exploring why some feel keeping Peacemaker is messy, how we now know Peacemaker is being kept regardless, and what this means for the future of DC on film. Ever since James Gunn formally announced his Phase 1, if you will, which will kick off with the animated Creature Commandos before the live-action Superman Legacy, we have been led to believe that the new DC universe would be a hard reboot. But prior to announcing that, Gunn had already indicated that Peacemaker Season 2 was coming out, which muddied the waters. For those that haven't seen Peacemaker Season 1, Jason Momoa's Aquaman and Ezra Miller's Flash both cameo in it, and chances are Jason Momoa will be recast as Lobo while Ezra will never be seen again, so that's awkward. Even more awkward, Peacemaker is the direct follow-up to The Suicide Squad, which itself is the direct sequel to Just Suicide Squad, which featured Ben Affleck's Batman. So, while Peacemaker himself never interacted with members of the to-be rebooted Trinity, he interacted with others that did, and that just creates confusion on what is canon in the rebooted universe and what is not. That is the problem. But Gunn might not see that as a problem. Before we move on to what Gunn says about Peacemaker today, let's revisit what he has said in the past and what could be derived from a careful reading of his words as we revisit my editorial from December 16th of 2022. For context, that is in the immediate aftermath of the firing of Henry Cavill, but before anyone else were confirmed gone, and long before any detailed plans had been announced. This is just me speculating here, but this is now looking more and more like a hard reboot rather than the Wrath of Khan style soft reboot we thought we would be getting based on earlier statements. I mean, even James Gunn himself, in not so many words, said they would build upon what worked and discard what didn't. Most people just assume that he included the casting of Henry Cavill as Superman in the "this worked" category, and would now, after long last, give him a Superman movie worthy of his talents. I certainly used to think that. Now, I'm more inclined to think that what Gunn actually meant was, we're gonna keep The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, because those worked. Everything else has to go.
1 minute later.
Again, all of this suggests to me a hard reboot, with the possible exception of Peacemaker, which I speculate that he would build upon, and then you're just gonna have to halfway forget the links between the Suicide Squad and the first Suicide Squad movie. Now, almost a year later, it would appear that my educated guess that Gunn intended to keep Peacemaker had merit. Let's see what he says today. On October 3rd, Bounding into Comics posted the highlights of James Gunn's recent interactions on Threads, the Instagram answer to X, formerly Twitter. There he clarified, nothing is canon until Creature Commandos next year. Remember, Creature Commandos is an animated series featuring the team from the comics plus one notable addition, Weasel from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which I don't think is a coincidence. On that note, Gunn later clarified even further, and yes, some actors will be playing characters they've played in other stories, and some of the plot points might be consistent with plot points from the dozens of films, shows and animated projects that have come from DC in the past. But nothing is canon until Creature Commandos and Superman Legacy. When asked about Blue Beetle and his earlier conflicting statements about that, Gunn replied, Xolo Maridueña will continue playing Blue Beetle in the DCU, as Viola Davis will Amanda Waller and John Cena will be Peacemaker. Yes, Freddy as Vigilante is still around. Which kind of suggests that at the very least Peacemaker Season 1 and the upcoming Season 1.5 Amanda Waller might be required viewing and therefore canon. But Gunn would appear to say otherwise. When asked if viewers would need to watch anything prior to Creature Commandos to understand what's going on, Gunn replied, they will not, no. Which seems weird given all the actors who returned to their earlier roles. I kind of doubt they're all going to pull a Ghost Rider spirit of vengeance. You know, the reboot in which Nicolas Cage played a different version of the same character he already played in the earlier Ghost Rider. So, what's going on? Well, it looks to me like Gunn is playing a game of semantic riddles, making statements that appear to say one thing, but if you dig deep enough, they actually say something different, yet consistent with the clues provided. For instance, and this is just me speculating here, it could be that Creature Commandos really starts from a clean slate, so you don't need to have seen anything else before it. But as I already said, it features Weasel, who is not part of that team. As such, and again, this is speculation, it could be that Creature Commandos could be a prequel leading into James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, thereby canonizing it and Peacemaker Season 1 in time for Superman Legacy. So, no previous viewing required going in, but you will soon be given homework in the guise of Peacemaker and eventually Blue Beetle. Again, this is just me speculating. It might not play out that way, but that is one valid solution to James Gunn's semantic riddle that does fit with all his statements. Case in point, Gunn was also asked on Threads, will Season 2 of Peacemaker take place in the new DCU continuity, or will it at least be addressed? To which he replied, yes and yes. To me, that is a very clear indication that while you can go into Creature Commandos cold, homework will be assigned at a later date. I know many are of the opinion that the slate should be wiped clean, the reboot should be complete, and James Gunn should discard even his own work on The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and the Amanda Waller series to that end. I see and concede that point. That said, I personally happen to be such a big fan of The Suicide Squad and especially Peacemaker that I'm actually glad he's doing it this way. My gut feeling is that as these rebooted DC movies get rolling, Peacemaker will be the connective tissue popping up all over the place, for all intents and purposes making the DC universe the Peacemaker cinematic universe. And I'd be cool with that. But that is me. What about you? This is a risky and convoluted approach, and I do acknowledge that, so I'd love to see your take on it in the comments.